Hi, welcome. Today we've got Taylor Sandford, pitching coach at the Thundering Herd of Marshall University. Taylor, appreciate you being with us today.
No, I appreciate you having me on.
Great. So tell me what's going on at Marshall University. Obviously, like in the state, we've got two D1 schools in West Virginia. Marshall's a big part of that. So what's happening there at Marshall?
Well, we're actually in the process of building a $30 million stadium, which is really exciting to have all those bells and whistles that come with a new stadium. And it's a lot of exciting times right now. They're putting up new video boards with football and for all sports, which is exciting. And there's a lot of really cool facility upgrades going on. We have our president's been here for a year and a half. Our athletic director's been here about a year, a little over. So again, it's a really exciting time here at Marshall.
Yeah, that's got to be great for recruits coming in, showing them breaking ground on new facilities. Hey, you'll be the guys with the first feet on the field.
Yeah, it's we actually are going to play in it this year, believe it or not. The the third weekend of the season is when we open up there. It'll be that first weekend series in March, and it's going to be a really it's going to be an awesome crowd because the community's really rallying around it. They're really excited about it. There's a ton of people that they just drive by to go look at the progress because it's crazy how quickly they've been able to get that in place.
Sure. So tell me about your path to Marshall. Talk a little bit about your playing career, and then how you ended up at Marshall now.
So I'm originally from right outside of Richmond, Virginia, Mechanicsville, Virginia, and I got recruited to play at Western Carolina University. So I was there I actually played 5 years. I redshirted a year when I had a shoulder surgery, and towards the end of my career playing, when I realized that hey man, the time's coming to an end, I asked myself, what do I want to do? And the thing I kept coming back to was I enjoyed helping my teammates, and I enjoyed seeing them reap some benefits of some tips that I gave them. And I was really fortunate to have really good coaching throughout my, high school, college career, and I wanted to give other guys that same experience. So when I got done playing, that's when I started reaching out and trying to find somewhere that I could get on as a volunteer. And look, I was really fortunate that Billy Jones, who was the head coach at Appalachian State at the time, he gave me an opportunity, and he was an awesome mentor to me. He taught me a lot. He he pulled the wool over my eyes a little bit, and would in the interview process he tried to make it sound like the worst job in the country. He tried to make it sound awful. Um, and I didn't balk at it. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And that was part of his, interviewing process, was to make it sound terrible, to see who would be like, I don't know if this is for me then, and to see who really wants to do it. So I was at Appalachian State with Billy for 2 years. And my now wife, we were dating at the time. We would run the concession stand. I would work tournaments at the field. She'd run the concession stand, and I was sleeping in a tent on the field. Um, I wasn't making any money, so I had to find a way to make it work, right?
Listen, every coach I interview has that story where, like, hey, man, I was sleeping in the back of the car or whatever. That's my first tent on the field story.
Yeah. So I went to Walmart and bought a tent that slept. It said it slept six, right? And I got that and a queen size blow up mattress, and I'd push it right up onto the backstop, um, because I could get the Wi-Fi from the press box. And then I'd run an extension cord out, and I'd have a fan, my phone charger, and iPad, and I slept on the field. And I would just get up early and make sure that I got all my stuff put away before anybody got there, and um, get to
That's
work
my
and be the
that's
last
my
one to leave.
greatest coaching story I've heard yet. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was awesome though. And then it started getting cold, and it was like, yeah, this is now I got to figure this out. Because during the summers in Boone are fantastic, beautiful. But the winters are tough. So that's when it was like, all right, I got to find somewhere. But again, it was a test of just do you really want to do this, right? And if you do, it's just like anything else. If you really want to do something, you'll find a way to do it. And if you don't want to do it, you'll find a reason why you shouldn't. Um, so coach with him, and then after 2 years, I got offered a job at an NAI school, St. Andrews University, and I coached there for 1 year. It was an awesome experience. You go from I played Division I baseball and got my start in Division I baseball, and then you go to an NAI school where the budget isn't as good and the facilities aren't as good, and you don't have as much support staff, and it really challenges you and it teaches you a lot where you have to learn to be organized and you have to learn to prioritize things and you have to learn how to make things happen and get things
Figure it
done
out.
without get a little creative with it, right? um, and then after that 1 year, I got offered a job at Erskine College, Division II school in South Carolina, um, and took that opportunity to go be the recruiting coordinator and top assistant there, and work with Coach Crocco, who was at Presbyterian before that, and he taught me a lot about recruiting and evaluating, and strength in numbers was one thing that he really pounded into me. It's like, man, the cream's gonna rise to the top. You got to get really good players, and you got to have a roster that is fully set so that you can achieve what you want to achieve. Um, and again, we had a lot of players because it was a Division II school that had a JV program, and I was running the strength and conditioning, and there was just again, you have to be organized, right? And it was an awesome experience. And then I got an opportunity to go back to my alma mater and coach with Bobby Miranda, which is obviously something everybody dreams of when you get into coaching, is to be able to go back to your alma mater. And I didn't hesitate for a second. So I went back and coached with Coach Mo for 4 years, and then at the end of the year when he retired, got a phone call and say, hey, we're looking for a pitching coach here at Marshall, and we had played Marshall previously, and Marshall had played Western Carolina the year before I got there, and it was their worst year in program history. The year before, and then I went back and then we played them the next year, and we played them close, and we actually ended up getting walked off on a double play ball where a shortstop tripped over he spiked himself and fell down, and we got walked off on. But it was, hey, I saw what that team was the year before you got there, and I saw what it was the year that you were there, and they made a lot of strides with a lot of same players, and I'm intrigued in what you're doing, and came up and saw the place and saw all the possibilities and all the good things that are happening, and was like, man, this is a really good setup. And the Sun Belt's an unbelievable league, and then with the facilities that we already have in place, and then what's coming with the new stadium, it was a no-brainer for me.
So you've got a lot of experience. You've been at multiple levels. Can you talk a little bit about the maybe the concept or the how you approach putting a staff together using older returning guys, looking at transfers, bringing in freshmen? What's the top level strategy you have?
Yeah. So the biggest piece of putting that staff together is knowing what you already have, right? You got to start there. What do we have? Um, and again, when you have an older group of guys, you can roll the dice on some younger guys because you're not going to have to throw those guys to the wolves right out of the chute. Um, Whereas when you're bringing in a bunch of new guys and you don't have a lot of returners, it's like, hey man, we're gonna have to go after some JC guys or some freshmen that we think can mentally and physically handle getting thrown to the wolves. But then from a recruiting side of it, when it comes to trying to put a pitching staff together, the first thing that I want to see is like, does he do anything unique? What does he do that's different? Whether it be, again, high spin, low spin, can he really command the baseball to both sides of the plate? Um, is it an attack angle? Is it whatever it may be that is unique? I want to see him do something unique that's going to set him apart from other guys. But again, it goes back to what do you have currently, and then what do you need right out of the chute? Do you need to have guys that can come in right away and be ready to go? Well, then you need to try to go and look for those JC guys that are a little more battle tested, or those Division I transfers, Division II, Division III NAI, whatever it may be. Because again, I'm not a, I see a Division II guy that logged 70 innings and walked 15 dudes and struck out 80 guys, and he was a first team all conference guy. It's like, yeah, man, like that's a guy I want to call. It's a guy I want to get in touch with.
Tell me a little bit from a roster standpoint. I know like post COVID, you guys have bumped up to a 40-man roster. What percentage of that ends up being pitchers? What do you like to carry pitcher wise on that 40-man roster?
So I'll say just on average, you're going to be right around half. Um, Now, with that being said, again, if you have a bunch of older guys and they're battle tested, that's when you're going to, be on the lower side of that where you're, hey, we got 15, 17 guys. And then on the flip side of that, if you have an older position player group and, the pitching group's a little younger, you may want to go 21, 22 arms just to help balance that out. But it does depend on, again, what you have and what you need, because the position player side of it does play a factor into what you're going to do with the pitching side of it.
Some of the trends that I have seen are used to be I'd see 9 or 10 freshmen every year rolling into most rosters, and now with the transfer rules, that seems to be dwindling down, and the transfer guys are picking up. Can you talk a little bit about the transfer rules and how you guys are adjusting to those and what impact that's making?
So it is interesting, right? And I feel like everybody's still trying to navigate through like what their niche is or what they think they should be doing or what's right and what's wrong, which nobody has that answer, right? Nobody knows what's right and wrong. But for us, it's, we believe that if you want to have sustained success over, multiple years, like you have to bring in high school guys and you have to develop them. And so that's where we want to have, 70% roughly of our recruiting class be high school guys. Um, then from there, then you decide, you go out and watch junior college guys, and if you see a guy that you really like, and again, for us, Patrick Copen, Zach Atkinson, we had an idea that those guys were potentially going to be draft picks, and we were able to start talking to some junior college guys because in preparation for those guys leaving, because that's a lot of innings we got to fill. And it's tough to have a freshman come in and like, hey man, we need you to fill the Friday role and the Sunday role, right? Not many freshmen can do that. So that's when you can start talking to those junior college guys. And then if you don't find a junior college guy you like or you love, and you're just kind of like, I don't know, that then you can wait, and it gives you another fail safe of another group of guys that are going to be hitting the portal where you can go get somebody from another school that may grad transfer, didn't like the opportunity that they were getting where they were, or you know they feel like they want to test the waters and play at a higher level.
So tell me about the junior college recruiting. It's my understanding a lot of times for you guys to get eyes on, a lot of times that takes place in the fall, as opposed to spring or summer. What can you talk about when you get to see junior college guys and when that kind of turns on like the recruiting side to them when you start communication?
So the fall is going to be a big time for us to be able to get out and see some of those junior college guys, with the Puma Classic and some of the bigger tournaments where there's going to be a lot of junior colleges there. We're going to get out and see as many as we can in those big tournaments. But if we see a guy again, if we see a guy in the fall that we love, we're going to move and we're going to get him, try to get that guy on campus and get an offer in front of him, and and if this is where he wants to be, he can make that decision before the spring season at his junior college. But if we don't find what we need and we don't see it, then that's where, during the season, we're going to rely on the coaches to keep us updated. We're going to, track those guys' stats and see what they're doing each week, and continue to talk to the guys that we had identified as possibilities and watch how they perform. And then if it matches up where we can get out and see those guys play, we're going to do that. Which is tough, because we play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday, and sometimes Wednesday, and they're playing Friday, Saturday at the very minimum. So it's tough. But sometimes the schedules do line up where, you're going to play somewhere and they're pitching somewhere, and hey, we don't play till later in the day, so you can go watch and pitch in the morning and still get back for the game. So it does become tricky. And then the beauty now of the transfer portal and junior college as a byproduct of it is guys are waiting longer. And then if we see a guy and we're not sure, but we want to go see him live, that's when we can go catch him at the beginning of the summer ball season and go watch him pitch live there.
So from a transfer portal standpoint, what are kind of the time frames? When does it open? When's it close? Like what's the timing of when you guys are allowed to is it open all year long? Or is there certain time frames that you focus on that? What are the rules?
So a kid can enter essentially whenever he wants. But there's a window, and the dates change the dates change during the summer, but it's essentially after, it's like July or June. I think it's June 1st is when like that opens up. And then it actually closed right, or like the window closed right after the draft. I think it was the 13th this year. Don't hold me to those dates, but
Right.
um, what
So there's a
the thing
summer
that's
window that happens there. And then once that window closes, then the merry-go-round stops for a while then.
Yeah, now, and there's exceptions to that. Because grad transfer, if a kid, if a guy doesn't enter during that window, but he's taking summer classes and then ends up graduating, well, grad transfer can enter the portal later. If a guy doesn't get kept, gets let go from the team he's on, he can enter. And then if there's a head coaching change outside that window, you can there's a petition, you got to go through compliance, but there's some things you can do to get into the portal outside of that window and still be able to transfer without sitting out.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about scholarships. Obviously, at the D1 level, you've got 11.7 scholarships for those programs that are fully funded. What's you guys have a philosophy as to from the pitcher standpoint of like of how you approach giving scholarships? Because a lot of parents think, "Hey, I'm going to get a full ride at some school." And that's just not the case. So can you put a little reality behind the scholarship numbers and like some ballpark percentages or that guys can expect?
Yeah, I mean, one way that kind of puts it into perspective for a lot of guys is you ask them, what do you think is a good scholarship? And then if they say 70%, or let's say they say 50%, well, it's like, well, then we have 11.7. So if we put all of our good play or all of our players on a good scholarship, well, we're only going to have 22 guys on scholarship. Well, 23 and then 20% left over, but you get
Yeah,
my point,
right.
right?
Yeah,
So you got to distribute it. You got to distribute it accordingly. And again, a lot, on the mound, obviously, guys are going to get more money on the mound than they are position players. That's just how the world works. Everybody's always looking for good pitching. Um, so again, and it depends on what you profile as and how the program does it. But if you are a guy that we go watch and it's like, man, I think this guy profiles out as a bullpen arm. Hey, that's probably a 30% guy, roughly, right? Um, hey, I think this guy's going to be a weekend starter. That guy's going to be 50 plus. Hey, I think this guy could be a long relief guy for us or a back end guy. Like those things are going to be different depending on what role we see. And part of it is what we have available, right? We may see a guy and be like, hey, man, we think you are a weekend arm, but right now all we have is 40% available, because that's where we are. And if we can up that, we will. But as of right now, in the time and place where we live, this is what we have. And that's the reality of it. Because again, 11.7, you got to stretch it as much as you can.
you guys have multi-year scholarships. Guys go year by year. How do you guys do it?
They're year by year. But we're not going to take guys' money based on performance. We believe that when we offer a kid a scholarship, that's our word, and then when he accepts that, that's his word, and we're men of our word. So if he comes in and doesn't perform to the level that we see fit, that doesn't, that for us, that's not grounds to just pull a scholarship. Um, Now, if we're having off the field issues and you're not taking care of your grades, like those are the things that are going to get your scholarship dollar taken away, right? Reduced or taken away.
Sure. And then there's always that conversation of, hey, if you come in, and I tell this guys for walk-on guys or scholarship guys, you get to the fall, guys are competing and they're going to put the best guys out there. I don't care how much money you're getting. The guys need to win games. So
Mm-hmm.
you get to a point where you could have a conversation with a kid that, hey, you're a 30% scholarship guy. Man, I just don't see you getting on the field here. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
show up with what we want. So listen, you can stay here and we're going to honor your scholarship, but I don't think it's your best baseball interest to do that. You may want to enter the portal. You may want to go back out there and look to see some place where you can compete and get on the field.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that's where having real and honest conversations with those guys of like, it is playing what's the most important thing to you. If playing is important and actually being on the field and getting at bats or pitching or whatever you're doing, if that's what's important, then maybe this isn't the place.
Yeah.
But if you just want to be on the team and you're okay with that, then yeah, that you can stay.
Wait, we'll honor that for sure. Can you
But I
talk?
do think a big.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say a big piece of that I think is, you got to build those relationships with those guys so that when you do sit down and have those tough conversations, they understand that this is not coming from a place of of hate or disappointment. It's just like we're looking out for what's best for you, depending on what you really want.
That's the benefit I see of having these conversations we're having now. So parents understand, listen, it's not a one-time deal. Hey, I've committed to this school. I'm going there. You got to earn your spot every year. This is,
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult to get a spot and then keep your spot. You got to work your ass off.
Yeah, Bobby Miranda, when I was at Western Carolina, he used to always say, he was like, "We're only as good as our freshmen." He was like, "We're only as good as our freshmen," and his theory behind that was, you want to keep bringing in guys that are better than what you have because it's going to allow the returners to either continue to progress and get pushed and get better, or they're going to get passed, and then they're going to, the new guy takes over and then injects life into your program and it injects life on the field. And um, there's a piece of that is true, right? We're only as good as our freshmen, so I do think that there's some value to that.
Yeah, so you've got a 40-man roster. You've got, I think it's 32 counters now. So you're by rule, you got to have 8 walk-on guys that you can't even offer scholarships to. So can you talk about the importance of those walk-on guys and that recruiting conversation of hey, this we need you on the team. You're a quarter uh of
Yeah,
our roster. So but still tough sell, right?
yeah, it is because everybody wants to get Division I scholarship, right? That's what everyone's goal is. But like you said, the reality is there's going to be 8 guys that do not get that. Um, and generally, the conversation is, "Hey, man, we want you, we like you, we love you, we want you to be a part of what we're doing. We think that you fit in. We just don't have scholarship money for you right now." And then you can come and earn that, right? Like you can come in as a walk on and you can earn a scholarship if you come in and take care of business, right? That's a real thing. But you got to come in and do it.
Yeah, so talk about every coach has those stories, right? Hey, we had walk-on guys and they earned scholarships. Can you look back at guys and kind of maybe you don't have to share names, but like a story where a guy ended up being an impact guy?
So I'll actually my favorite, one of the best stories, and it's actually a guy, not a guy that I coach, but it's a guy that I played with. His name's Tyler White. Guy, he's a World Series ring with the Houston Astros. Um, he was recruited, and they told him, "Hey, man, you can come walk on." And this was when there was a 35-man roster, and they said, "Hey, you're 36 and 35 on the roster, but you can come have the fall. Um, and if you don't make the team, you can be the manager." And he took it and he ran with it, and he started every game in his career. He played every inning of his career but 3 innings. He was the SoCon Player of the Year his senior year, and he got drafted and made it to the big leagues, right? And that guy had one Division I offer, and it was to go to Western Carolina as a walk on, and you had to make the team, and if you didn't, you could be a manager. And he wrote his own story, right? And that's the thing that is cool about the walk-ons is those guys get to write their own story. They get to come in and they get to work their tail off and make something of themselves and earn what they get, or they can be like, well, I'm just a walk-on and use it as an excuse, right? But yeah, and again, you nailed it. I can go on and on with those types of stories. Justice Bigby, who was from Virginia Beach, was out of high school and didn't hit for a ton of power, but was big, bigger kid, pretty physical. And it was like, he's not a catcher, but there's a hit tool, right? And then you put him in the outfield and he's not in a crouch all the time. He's not banging himself up. And the guy starts hitting for power. And he's SoCon Player of the Year and he gets drafted. And I think he's in AA right now. Yeah, he's in AA right now with the Tigers. He's hitting last time I checked, he was hitting 353. And the dude's going off, right? And that guy didn't have anywhere else to go. So yeah, those stories happen all the time. It's guys that believe in themselves and they come in and they work their tails off. They get what they earn. That's how the world works. You're going to get what you earn.
So talking from a roster standpoint, red shirts, how do you guys use that? It seems like nowadays, most guys when they're playing baseball in a big time program, it's a lot of those guys are into being 5-year guys. Can you talk about how you guys use red shirts?
So we're not big into redshirting guys. We're not big into over recruiting either. So we're not going to have a ton of extra guys roaming around. We're going to have our roster. When you show up, this is who we're going to war with. And most of the red shirts that we have are going to be guys that get medical red shirts, because we want to use our whole roster to some capacity. And again, and I do believe that every kid can do something to bring value. Whether it's a guy that, hey man, he's got a big 12-6 breaking ball, and all you're going to do is come in and throw that big 12-6 breaking ball 3 times to a guy that has a super flat swing and you got to pitch that has a ton of depth. Like, that's your role and that's your job. We're going to use you when we need it. Hey, you're a left-handed pitcher. You're soft tossing lefty, but you can spin a breaking ball. You're going to come in and spin 3 breaking balls against a guy that is left on left and he can't hit a breaking ball. That's where, we want to use and optimize our entire roster to the best we can and find something for every single guy to do and own in it as a role.
So we're coming up on August 1st with the new recruiting rules. August 1st being the first time for necessarily communication with the 25s, and this just being implemented. A lot of guys have already had conversations before the rule with 25s and even 26s. Can you talk a little bit about that communication rule and for you guys, what happens starting August 1st this year, and then kind of moving forward, how pushing that communication with those youngers, those underclassmen back. I'm sure guys are still developing their plans, but what's that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so that's when when that August 1st day hits, we're going to reach out to those 25s that we like, and we're going to start developing those relationships, expressing our interest, trying to get those guys on campus for visits, trying to get them on. And again, if there's a guy, for example, that we saw once and it's like, man, I like that, it's interesting, but I want to see it again. I need to see one more look. Hey man, we got a camp coming up. Can you come to our camp? It'll be the fastest way for us to see you, because we do believe that the fall is really, really important for our guys, and we don't want to miss fall practices and fall games to go out recruiting, because we need to be here and be present with the group of guys we have. Those are the guys that we're going to war with during the season, so we need to be here to prepare them. So it does make it tough if you only get a couple, 1 or 2 glimpses at a guy and you're not 100% sure. That kid coming to that camp is a huge benefit for us to be able to A, get another look, and B, be able to spend some time with him and ask him to try some things and do some different things and get an idea of if the fit's right.
That's for underclassmen as well, right? So even even though the communication process can be, you guys are still going to tournaments, watching guys and that kind of stuff. All that stuff still takes place. So having those getting on camp or having a guy get to camp on campus somewhere is really the only way, that there could be some interaction as far as like just
Correct.
baseball wise, not recruiting wise, but just seeing a guy talking to a coach, seeing what's happening on camp. Cause I can't take those visits anymore as freshman and sophomore.
Correct. So that's where, we're going to put a lot of value into those camps to spend some time with those guys and see what they're about. But the big piece though is making sure that you still get out, you see those guys, and you have your lists, and you want to be prepared so that when that day, when the August 1st deadline hits, we can get on the phone and start developing those relationships, because everybody's going to be doing it now at the same time. They're going to be developing those relationships on August 1, and it's going to be who can develop the best relationship, get those guys on campus the fastest, and meet those guys' needs.
So tell me, give me a little behind the scenes look. Somewhere in some office on the board, there's a list of guys, right? You got positions across there. Hey, these are my 2025 pitchers. Here's my 2026 pitchers. These are the guys we're looking at. The board's changing, scratching guys off. Tell us a little bit behind the scenes as to what happens as a coaching group as you guys start to try to make those decisions or put guys into, hey, this is a guy we want to offer. Can you give me a little behind the scenes look?
Yeah. So we have a Google Doc that we all have access to, that we can go in and you add guys and you put in who it is and who saw him and your notes, and then we rank them in terms of what we think, and that's how we prioritize the guys that we want to get on campus as quick as possible, and the guys we want to see more of, and that is our centralized location. And then I keep a separate list on one of my tablets that is where I keep a lot of my recruiting notes, uh, and a separate list so that I like to handwrite. I'm a big handwriter, so I can write everything out and then upload it into that Google Doc. So that's our system, right? And we're going to continue to tweak it, because again, myself and Coach Beals got to work together for just the spring, and Coach Donnelly and Coach Everhart we're all still getting used to working together, because those other guys just got hired this summer, and like say Coach Beals got hired in January, so we're still working the kinks out on how we like it and how we want to communicate some things. But that is the guts of it are going to continue to stay the same.
So then hats turn on backwards, smoke filled room with cigars where like, hey man, like I gotta have this guy. If you want me to compete this staff, so then the bartering starts, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing that is, the cool part, I guess, is like when you truly want a guy, and you're like, that's the guy I want. Like, it, no coach in the room is going to argue that, because we've all been there, right? Whether you think he's gonna, like, I may think that a kid's gonna be really, really good, and everybody else thinks he's gonna stink. But like, I believe in it, right? Like, and you can tell when somebody truly believes in a kid. It's like, this is our guy. This is our guy. And then you can tell when it's like, well, why is he our guy? And it's like, maybe he's not, like, right? Like, that if you can get talked down off of it, then he's probably not.
You've got to get some starters, relievers, whatever. Are there body types that you're looking for? Can you talk a little bit about that? Now, granted, obviously, most guys there are anomalies, but generically, are there some body types that you're looking at to fill certain roles?
Yeah, I mean, again, I tend to err towards the side of, I want guys that aren't average. So I want guys that are big or small. Um, Now, obviously, again, I'm not going to turn away, a 6'1" right-handed arm that I like. But again, I tend to be drawn towards guys that are really big or guys that are undersized, just because it's different. It gives you a different look. But again, from my experiences, guys that are, thicker, wider, bigger bodied dudes are going to be able to log more innings than guys that are smaller and more, narrow shouldered. So I do tend to err towards the side of bigger bodied, taller, wide, wide shoulders, wide body, deep, built like refrigerators, right?
It goes without saying that like every team's got that little lefty that's just a dude. You don't know where it comes from, but he just competes and he throws and like he's awesome, right? So there's
100%.
always the anomaly.
Yeah, and again, like I tell, I would tell any recruit, like beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? Like it, you could be the best player in the country, and I may not like the way it looks. And you could be ranked the 150th player in your state, and I could like the way it looks. Like I think there's something there, right? Um, so there's an element of that where it's you could do everything right and you can do all the right things and check all the boxes, but I may just not like the way it looks, and there's nothing you can do about that. And that's a real thing. It's a reality that we have to grasp is that I have to like the way it looks, and when it comes to recruiting a pitcher, I have to aesthetically be like, oh, I like this.
So everybody talks about velocity, and I try when I'm talking to parents. I work with pitchers a lot, so I try to tell them it's not that you're not a good pitcher or can't compete, but for a college hitter, there's a minimum floor in my mind that you've got to be able to throw in order to get that guy to respect the fastball to where your other pitches can work. And that for me, that's just a reality. How do you look at the velocity thing? And on average, is there a baseline for righties or lefties it, in general to get you to go watch a guy? You're going to make decisions on a lot of things, but to get it, to go see a guy, is there you got a floor or something on average that you look at?
Yeah, I would say that for a right-handed pitcher, 83, 84 is going to be my floor, and 83 depend is I say 83, 84. It's usually 84, but if I hear, hey, the bottom number is 83, but the top number is 90, then yeah, I'm going to go check that out. Um, but for right-handed pitchers, 83, 84 is the bottom number. I think that we get confused sometimes when you ask a coach or a player, hey man, what do you sit? And they're like, I sit 86, 89. It's like, well, no, no, you don't. Um, you're 80, you're 85, 87, and you run it up to 89. You don't sit 86, 88, or 87, 88, touch 89. There's a difference between sitting and pitching. And again, that's why when I take my notes and I'm out recruiting, I'm looking for that bottom number. Like, what does he bottom out at? What is the very bottom number that he gets to in an outing? And then what's the top number of that outing? And then where does he cruise? Where are the majority of his bolts in terms of where's he sitting throughout that outing? And then for lefties, I want that guy to be able to stay above 80 for an entire outing.
Nowadays we've got all the PBR perfect game. We're getting a lot more than just a look, a video. We've added the metrics, right? So I can see vertical break on a fastball. I can see spin rates on sliders. So we get a lot of data now. Are there any metrics in that world that maybe after that initial look, you're comparing guys. Hey man, that I want to see a guy spin that four seam, 21, 2200 and above. That's what I've seen work with guys that are here. The difference between a guy that throws well in the league and it doesn't, that seems to be a good number. Are there metrics that ring true to you that you want to see guys at?
I don't want to say there's like specific metrics because I'm not going to get on to PBR perfect game whatever and immediately go look at a specific metric. I'm going to look at the total body of work, and I want to see, is there an outlier? Is there something that they do in those metrics that is unique, whether it be the induced vertical break, the spin rate, whatever, pick your poison, right? But I just want to see something that's unique that's going to catch my eye. And if there's something that's unique, then I can go, okay, like he has something that is outside of average. And again, it's okay to be below average too, right? Um, again, a lot of I hear guys be like, I want to get my spin rate up. And it's like, well, you don't have to get it up. Like there's low spin guys, right? Like that's people throw sinkers. It's okay to be a low spin guy. You just don't want to be average. try to stay out of that average. And that's what I look for more so is just, can he be outside of average?
About from a statistical standpoint, like so, I try to tell parents a lot of times, listen, they're not looking at like wins and losses and that kind of thing. There's too many other factors with that. When a guy goes to see a guy throw, but are there some stats, some strikeout stats, some ratios, or some things that that do seem to like tell a story of, hey, this if this guy can't do this at the high school level, he's probably going to struggle at the college level.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I go work at, that when I go in to look at, perfect game and see stats on there, the first thing I look at is what are the walk numbers? Is he commanding the strike zone? Because again, you can throw 100, but if it's off the backstop, it's not going to help us. So that's the first thing that I look at is the walks, and then the second thing I look at is the strikeouts, and then I want to look at how many hits he's given up per inning, which hits can be subjective, right? Just like errors can. So I take that with a grain of salt sometimes, but walks and strikeouts, those two are pretty clear cut. Um, if you have a strikeout an inning and you're averaging, one walk or three walks per nine, you got something, right? Like this guy's going to be able to pitch. He can throw the ball in the strike zone. And he's got some swing and miss stuff. Um, and then again, to go back to your point, like I'm not going to look at wins and losses. I'm not looking, I will look at the ERA, but the ERA is not something that is going to make or break going to see a kid because there is some subjectivity to it. There's a high school kid or a college kid on summer break running Game Changer. Are they 100% dialed in on what was a hit versus an error? Probably not. So, but again, the two things that I look at immediately are what are the walk numbers and what are the strikeouts? Can he throw the ball inside the strike zone at a high level? And then does he have good enough stuff to get guys to swing and miss?
So let's talk a little bit about development. So you got guys, freshmen, they walk into campus. One guy's he's got a bag full of plyo balls, driveline balls. One guy's got a core velocity belt. Another guy, he's got like a connectivity ball, kind of a Texas
Yep.
baseball range kind of thing. How do you deal with all those different methodologies and kind of piecing that together into some sort of cohesive development program?
So the biggest thing that I have learned over, you know, in my coaching career is that patience is a virtue, right? Like patience is something that we all need to have more of. So when it comes to those guys walking in on the first day, I'm going to tell them what to do, like what we're doing throwing wise, workload wise that day. And then I'm going to watch them do it. And I'm not going to say a lot. I'm just going to watch. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to take video. I'm going to collect information. And I'm just going to watch. And then over the course of 3 weeks, I'm going to be able to collect enough information to bring those guys in and sit them down and go, okay, so here's what I see. And then here's the plan that I see to get you where we want to go, right? Here's your lowest hanging fruit, whatever that may be. Um, here's your lowest hanging fruit. Here's our plan of how we're going to attack it. And here's the plan on how we're going to achieve this goal. And then we move forward from there. But again, I'm not going to jam anything down guys' throats. I just want to see what they do and how they go about doing it. Because you were good enough to do something to get you here. Like, why would we just immediately start changing things?
What types of tools do you guys use for development? You guys Rapsodo, TrackMan, you Insight cameras. Like what are the what's in the toolkit?
So with the new stadium coming, we're obviously going to be able to get a lot of really new toys, and a lot of cool ones. So we're going to be able. We're getting obviously TrackMan's going to be part of the state. We're going to have a stadium unit, a portable unit. We're going to get kinematic cameras. We're getting Edgertronic cameras. We're working on getting some force plate mounts. Like we're trying to get everything right. You get one shot when you build a stadium. Let's do it right. So we're working on having every bell and whistle that we can have and every tool. We also already have a $1 million biomechanics lab on campus as well. So that's where during those first 4 weeks, we're going to be putting guys, and we use armcare.com as well. So, and if you're familiar with armcare.com,
Yeah.
I mean, I can speak more on that if you need me to, but during those first 3 weeks, we're going to be collecting armcare.com data. We're going to get those guys, we're going to run them through a functional movement screen so that we know what their mobility deficiencies are. We're going to get them in the weight room and we're going to test them in the weight room to find out what their strength, where they are strength wise. We're going to get them in the biomechanic lab so that we can see how they're moving. And then we're going to have them, we're going to have the Edgertronic cameras to see how the ball's coming out of their hand. We're going to have the kinematic cameras to back up what we're seeing in the biomechanics lab. And then obviously, we'll have the TrackMan Rapsodo data to tell us what the ball's doing. So once you take all that information, that's when, I sit down and go, okay, what is the lowest hanging fruit right now? What's the first thing that we need to attack? Or what's the glaring flaw, right? Whatever it may be. And then I sit down and put a plan together from there. And then the thing that I guess I do that I think the guys really like is once I put that plan together, I bring them into my office and I give them a copy of it. And I say, hey man, read this over. Tell me what you think. Because I truly believe that ownership is one of the biggest pieces, if not the biggest piece of your development. You have to truly believe in what you're doing. And if you don't believe in it, you're not going to attack it wholeheartedly and you're going to get diminishing return. So I want them to take that development plan home. I want them to read over it. And if they want to make adjustments, I tell them, if you want to make adjustments, set up a time to come back tomorrow and let's make those adjustments to your development plan. And if you're good with it, I'm going to text it to you and email it to you. So you have a hard copy, you have it in your text, you have it in your email, you can't lose it. And then we're going to attack it.
So tell me, I've got let's say I've got freshmen and sophomore. I got guys who are sitting, 78 to 80. They've got opportunities to play fall baseball, get another month of throwing in, or spend some hardcore time in the weight room. Any thoughts from talking to those underclassmen as to what their priority should be?
It depends on what your deficiency is. If a kid's 78 to 82 and he can't throw strikes, he needs to play. He needs to figure out how to throw the ball in the strike zone. He needs to get more time on the mound with a hitter in the box and with consequences, right? Because it's a lot easier to pitch in an indoor facility on a turf mound when there's nobody in the box to hit it. But again, if the kid can throw strikes and he can pitch and he can move the ball around and he can field his position, then that guy probably should get in the weight room and develop his body in the weight room over developing his skill on the field. So it just depends, but I do believe that if your skill set is there and you can, the skill set's right, the movements are right, and there's no glaring deficiencies in your game, then that's where you do want to go into the weight room and spend more time there. But again, if there are, deficiencies in your game where you can't throw strikes or you need to clean up an arm action or a mechanical flaw or whatever, then those guys need to play.
So what would you say, you talked about trying to put a program, what about you personally? Do you have a methodology? Do you like what the tread guys are doing, drive line, weighted balls? Do you have a base approach, long toss? Or are there some things that you fundamentally like yourself?
So if you put me on the spot and said I had to pick one and I couldn't get information from the others, then I would say driveline. That's the one that I would prefer. But I believe that part of my job as a pitching coach is to know what everybody's doing, to read into what Triveline's doing, what Tread's doing, what Florida Baseball Ranch is doing, what Brent Porcio at Top Velocity is doing. I need to know all those things because I can take something from Top Velocity and give it to a guy, and it's going to really help him. And then I could take something from Tread, and it's going to really help him. And I piece all those pieces together. So the short answer is no. I don't have a just staple because I do believe that every guy is different. There's some guys that don't need to long toss as much as other guys. There's some guys that don't need to go past 150 or 153 or whatever that distance is. And then there's some guys that want to open it up and bomb it out and get length 2, 3, 4 times a week. And you have to be able to put programs together to fit guys' needs. And then you have to be able to adjust and get those guys to be open-minded to trying new things. I like to ask our guys frequently. I say, do you like sushi? And they'll say yes or no. And then if they say yes, I say, well, how do you know? And they say, because I tried it. And I go, okay, well, what's the difference here, right? Like, I just need you to try it and assess it, right? You never know.
No, that's good. That's good. Let's talk a little bit about the communication process. So if I'm an underclassman, freshman, sophomore, hey, I want to go play at Marshall. What should I be doing in order to prep for the to show you that I'm interested in coming to Marshall?
So again, obviously we can't talk to those guys, but if there's a kid that is sending me weekly updates and sending me video and keeping me updated, A, that shows interest. B, that shows that he's committed and he's regimented. He knows how to take care of his business. And it allows me to track the progress, right? Like I have it right in front of me. I can see what he's doing each week. So those are three ways. And again, just you can find my email on the website and just blast that information over. And I can't respond, but I'm going to be reading it, right? I have a rule that if a kid sends a personal email, I'm going to read it and I'm going to respond. But if it's one of the generics and the ones that get blasted out, I'm not going to read it. And if you misspell my name, I'm not going to read it either.
So from an email standpoint, you got any stories of some interesting emails that you've got in the past? Either good, either maybe really good or bad or really bad.
I have both. Um, I have, I mean, I get emails from kids that it's the wrong sport. Like, yeah, man, um, I actually don't coach football. So um, you might want to email someone else because you just emailed the wrong sport. Um, and then, the ones that I actually personally like are the kids that are a little like they tell me they're like, yeah, man, I can help you. And I'm like, they know how good they are. Um, I like when a kid believes in himself and he's like, I can play there. He's like, you need to come see me because of these reasons, right? Like I like that because it shows that self efficacy. It shows a belief in himself. He's like, hey man, I can do this. And I do. The mind is a really really powerful tool. Um, and guys that believe in themselves generally find success.
So once you get to that August first date, communication's open. Can you talk a little bit about like the communication process? Is it email, phone calls, DMs? What's kind of the normal, the average process for you guys?
The first thing I'm going to do is text those guys to make sure they're free and try to set up a phone call as fast as possible. Um, and in the day and age we live in, it's not hard to find cell phone numbers. So I prefer texting and calling over email and DM. I just think it's more personal. I like to get on the horn with those guys. I'll get on Zoom calls with guys as well so that they can put a face to the name. I think that's important. You can see how they interact.
What about like, so let's say we're on a phone call. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the to-dos and the things you should stay away with in making a phone call with a college coach?
Um, I don't think there's anything, and again, I'm an open book. I believe that you should be who you are, right? I'm not going to try to be somebody I'm not to convince a kid that he should come to Marshall. If he likes who I am as a human being and he likes what I believe in and what I teach and what we're doing and our core beliefs here at Marshall, then the fit's right. And if he doesn't like those things, then the fit's wrong. You should go somewhere else. That's how you keep guys out of the transfer portal is by them meeting their expectations. So I believe that everything should be on out there. You can ask whatever you want. I think that what kids don't do enough of is they don't truly sit down and ask themselves like what's truly important to me. Um, they just get on the phone and then they listen to the majority of coaches talk and they're like, "You got any questions?" And they're like, "No, I'm good." Um, But again, yeah, I get on the phone with a kid. I'm like, what's the most important thing to you when it comes to making a decision where you go? Number one, top of the food chain. What's the most important thing? And there's kids that are like, that I've said, I've never been asked that. And
Yeah.
that's a problem.
There's a lot. It's amazing with such a big decision it is how little, even the family conversations, how little they have talked about. Hey, like, and you're in car rides for hours going to travel team tournaments and stuff like that. And I'll talk with the parents like, well, we've never really sat down and talked about that. I'm like, well, it's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. And again, the parents do need to prod a little bit because the emotional intelligence of 16 to 18-year-old kids isn't great, right? Like they sometimes can't see the forest through the trees, right? So parents do need to sit down and prod some of these questions and dig at them a little bit to get, hey, what do you truly care about? What's really important to you? Is the development important? Is the location important? Is the coaching staff important? Is the campus, whatever the factors may be, but what are the things that are truly important to you, and rank them.
What advice, if I've got a junior, um, August 1st rolls around, I haven't heard from Marshall, but I'm interested in them. What should be their steps?
Email is the first step, and from there, and again, personalized email, right? The generic emails are not, and it's not hard to identify which ones are generic and which ones aren't. Like, I'm interested in your program, like, got it. You should use the word Marshall in your email. So the first step would be email. The second step would be, and again, I'm speaking August 1st to when we open up. If you can come to camp, you come to camp, because that's going to be the fastest way to get in front of us if you're truly interested.
And that
Um,
shows it, right? Right. If a kid's willing to come to camp, that's not just word speak, right?
yeah, no, if you come to camp, you're obviously interested in Marshall. So that shows us, hey man, this kid's genuinely interested because he's willing to take a day and come to our camp and show us what he can do. And
And
then from there, that allows us to make a decision on, we can make a decision right then and there and be like, man, this is a guy we want in our program, or it's a guy that we can, hey man, we need to get out and see this guy play again as soon as they open us back up in September.
so, any interesting recruiting stories that you've had that you can share with like the public? I'm sure there's some you can't that you say behind closed door with other coaches, but any funny ones or interesting ones that pop out to you?
I'm so the ones that immediately pop out are the ones that I probably shouldn't share. Um, those are the ones that I get the most. I called one of the guys I used to coach with last night because of this question, and was just like, hey man, like, here's the first things that come to my mind. And I was like, I can't say that, right? And he was like, no, you can't say that. Dude. Like, you can't tell these stories. But again, the thing that I will say, I guess, that is just it's crazy the things we see. It's crazy the things we hear. Because like you said, earlier on, people just don't understand the process. They don't understand how things work. They don't understand some of the intricacies of this process, and I find it fascinating every year, the things that I continue to encounter. um but yeah, I struggle with the ones that I should share.
I tell you what, and that's why I really appreciate. I know you're busy and taking the time with us to kind of share with the parents and the players out there as to, hey, this is some insight into how this process works specifically for pitchers this time. But I really appreciate that. So, any kid looking to make their decision or think about where they want to go, why should they consider Marshall?
If the first thing I'll say is that it all comes down to what you want out of your experience. And that is the most important thing of this decision, is being honest with yourself of what you want. But for Marshall, what we can provide is, I mean, again, we're going to provide a $30 million stadium, which is going to be state of the art, which is awesome. You're going to play in the Sun Belt Conference, which is a really, really good league. And you're going to be in the Marshall community. They rally around the sports here. It is I will never forget the first football game I went to last year. I looked at my wife and I was like, are there rules? Like, are just rules are out the window during tailgating? Like, we just do whatever we want. People are jaywalking in front of cops with solo cups. I'm just like,
Yeah,
but people love
what an
Marshall. Anything that is Marshall athletics, they love it. Eat it up. The first Christmas break, Christmas break basketball games, right? There's no students here. Usually the attendance is down, right? Because there's no students. And the first game I went to, there was like 4,500 people, whatever it was, like 4,000, anyway, somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 people there. And I'm like, it's a week before Christmas. They just love Marshall athletics and they support it, which is awesome, right? Having support, having people that are invested in the program, having people that care about you and the program is awesome to have. It makes playing a lot more fun, right?
Sure. Taylor Sandifer, pitching coach for the Thundering Herd there at Marshall University. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was my pleasure.